There, when you hear the word malnutrition, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For a lot of us, it's probably images of people not having enough food. But what if I told you that's only half the story? Today, we're going to dive into what malnutrition really is and how this hidden imbalance on both ends of the scale actually affects our health.
So think about that for a second. It seems almost like a trick question, right? But the answer gets to the very heart of a massive global health challenge. Realizing that having too little and having too much are just two sides of the very same coin, well, that's the first big step to really getting what this is all about. So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll nail down the core idea of nutritional imbalance. Then we'll look at the dangers of getting too little and then too much. After that, we'll zoom in on some really common deficiencies in India. And finally, we'll talk about how you can spot and, most importantly, solve the problem.
Okay, first up, the nutrition imbalance. Let's make sure we get a really solid handle on this, because understanding this one core concept is totally key to everything else we're going to talk about.
And here it is, the big takeaway. Malnutrition is not just about a lack of food. It's an imbalance. It's a whole spectrum. On one end, you've got undernutrition, and way over on the other end, you've got overnutrition. Both are types of malnutrition, and both can be really harmful.
So here we can see those two extremes side by side. Undernutrition is pretty straightforward, not getting enough energy and nutrients. Overnutrition is the opposite, consuming way too much. What's kind of wild is that these two problems can exist in the same country, sometimes even in the same neighborhood. It's something experts call the double burden of malnutrition.
So let's really dig into that first side of the coin, the danger of getting too little. What actually happens to our bodies and our minds when they just aren't getting the fuel they need?
You know, the effects ripple through your entire body. That weakness and tiredness you see here, it's not just a feeling, it's a sign that the body is literally running on empty. And when you're low on fuel, your immune system gets weak, which means you're much more likely to get sick. It's a total body problem that drains you physically and makes it hard to think clearly.
And for children, the consequences are even more devastating. Poor growth isn't just about being small, it can lead to stunting, which has effects that last a lifetime. A kid who can't focus in school is going to fall behind, and if you're always sick, you're missing out on learning and playing. It's a really tough cycle to break.
Okay, let's flip this around and look at the other extreme. Overnutrition. It's easy to not think of this as malnutrition, but believe me, eating too much, especially of the wrong kinds of food, puts an incredible amount of stress on the body.
This is a direct pipeline to becoming overweight or obese, because the body has to store all that extra energy as fat. And this isn't just about how you look. It seriously ramps up the risk for chronic diseases like heart disease and type 2 diabetes. Plus, it can create this vicious cycle where you feel less like being active, which just makes the problem worse.
Now let's bring this down from the big picture to some really specific real-world examples. The source material points out several common nutritional issues in India that really show how these deficiencies can impact millions of people. This slide basically maps out some of the major public health challenges. You've got problems with the big stuff, like protein and energy, but also with those crucial little micronutrients like vitamin A, iron, and iodine. Let's take a quick look at each one. So protein-energy malnutrition, or PEM, is a really big deal, especially for kids. This slide shows the two most severe forms. Marasmus is basically what we think of as starvation, where the body just wastes away. Kwashiorkor is different. It's caused by a severe lack of protein, which can actually cause fluid to build up in the body, leading to swelling.
Next up, vitamin A. This one is absolutely essential for your vision. A deficiency often starts out as night blindness, having a hard time seeing in dim light. But if it's not treated, it can get worse and worse, and tragically can lead to permanent, irreversible blindness. It's that serious.
Anemia is another huge issue around the world, and it's mostly caused by a lack of iron. Think about it. Iron is what helps your red blood cells carry oxygen around your body. Without enough iron, your body is literally starved for oxygen. And that explains exactly why people with anemia feel so tired and run down all the time. It's incredibly common, especially for women and kids.
And finally, iodine. A lack of iodine does something pretty noticeable. It causes the thyroid gland in the neck to swell up. That condition is called a goiter. But what's even more serious is what you can't see. It can lead to poor mental development, which is a really big risk for babies whose mothers were deficient.
But here's the amazing part. For a problem this big, the solution turned out to be incredibly simple. The widespread use of iodized salt has been one of the most successful public health efforts in history, preventing goiters and protecting brain development for millions and millions of people. It's pretty cool.
So we've defined the problem, we've looked at some pretty stark examples, which brings us to the final crucial part. how do we actually figure out if someone is malnourished? And what's the ultimate key to preventing it in the first place?
Well, detection isn't just one single test. It's more like being a detective. It usually starts with simple measurements, like comparing height and weight to standard growth charts. Then you combine that with looking for physical signs, like the swelling or paleness we've talked about. And finally, you have to look at what a person is actually eating every day to get the full picture.
At the end of the day, it all comes back to that one single word: imbalance. Whether it's too much or too little, the root of the problem is a diet that's just out of whack with what the body needs. And that means the best way to prevent it isn't some magic pill, it's just restoring that balance.
And that's where we'll wrap up. We've seen that malnutrition is a really complex issue with some pretty serious consequences. But the solution? Well, that starts with simple balance. So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. What's one small, totally doable change you could make today to bring just a little more balance to your own diet?